A group of entitled Karens make my life a living nightmare as they schedule a dinner reservation for their upcoming wedding without servers, dishwashers, and other essential things for an evening dinner just so they could cut costs and save some money. But as a result, this evening very quickly turned into a nightmare as this became one of the most hectic jobs I've ever completed in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so today I'm going to tell you the tale of me trying to feed a clan of angry, pushy, unvaccinated Karens. Just last year, we had a client who turned out to be a total Karen. It started out with small tells that we probably should have noticed in retrospect. I mean, there were definitely degrading comments made towards their own daughter during a menu tasting, as well as her being snippy over prices. However, it didn't quite register at the time, and we gave them the benefit of the doubt. They originally decided to do a self-serve buffet and picked out their menu pending their final guest count. We give them a ballpark based on their maximum guest count, and that seems to be that for the time being. Well, months roll by and they give us their final guest count, while we deliver an estimate based on that. But almost immediately, they get more rude over the price. They also want to change from buffet service to fully plated, and they did this because they feel there's not enough space in the venue for a buffet. So we happily oblige and redo the entire estimate. Now, for any who aren't aware, plated service generally requires far more staff than a buffet. You need plating cooks and servers, not to mention additional equipment like plate racks. And needless to say, with all of this added together, the Karen is furious and demands that the servers be removed because according to her, the guests can walk up to the kitchen service window and get their own plates. And you know what? That's totally fine. That is doable. But that still is not enough. She starts complaining by saying, "Oh, why is the price so high?" So we then proceed to explain the equipment and the kitchen staff needed, plus having staff on call in case of call-ins and no-shows. Well, this entitled Karen isn't having any of that, resulting in all sorts of cajoling over the price and the unneeded staff. At one point, they even tried to use the native status of some relatives just to get the sales tax removed. And as a side note, it turns out that even just trying to do that is a federal crime where we're at, which had I known at the time, things would have been much different. So to try to accommodate, we trim it down. I've plated for 35 solo with no delay out of the back of a van. I was outpacing what the two servers could take most of the time. 4 staff for 100 people or so shouldn't really be an issue if the tables are set up for 10 people, and especially if they're going to be shuffling up one by one to get their plates. But fast forward to the day of, and trust me, this is definitely not how it ended up playing out. As it turned out, on the day of, the coordinator had no seating plan or plan of who gets what. All we have is the invoice of the total numbers of dishes to be plated up, so no prioritizing can even be done on a table-by-table basis. And this is where we had a feeling it was about to be an awful evening. Literally, right as service starts, and we have about as many plates of salad stacked on the service window as you can possibly fit, the wedding coordinator barges in and tells us that people won't be coming to get their own plates, and then refuses to elaborate further. So things just went from suboptimal to a complete disaster at this point. So what happens instead, you might ask? The wedding coordinator and 2 of their staff are carrying plates one by one to the tables. We literally don't have room to place more plates, so the head chef exits the kitchen and starts taking plates by the armful. And I'm talking all the way from the wrist up to the shoulder, since there are no serving trays in the client's venue, and we didn't pack any unneeded equipment as per the client's request. So you might be asking, what does the chef see when he gets out on the floor? Well, the stupid wedding coordinator packed the tables in so tightly that no one can even get out of their seat. No one can even get between the tables to serve the food, and the guests have to pass the plates down the tables. But it just keeps getting worse. While the chef is out, the coordinator comes in, apparently mad that the plates are not all matching. She's informed the client forewent a rental of dishware to use the ones in the venue. So there literally aren't more than 30 matching plates of any particular size or design in the dish cupboard. So the coordinator starts digging through the clean dishes with her unwashed hands, presumably trying to find more matching plates, and she was doing this all without even covering up her hair. On top of that, she tossed her jacket down onto an open bin full of bread rolls. So now we have to discard those as well. And on top of that too, we have to sanitize all the dishes that she made filthy. The salads were simple, but the entrees have multiple components. The coordinator and her staff start to just take incomplete plates because they don't even know what a full plate should include. When we tell them to stop, the coordinator goes full Karen mode. berating us and saying that people are hungry, while also berating us for sending out incomplete plates. Now, the mother of Bridezilla, the Queen Karen herself, comes up to the plating window and starts screaming at the whole kitchen staff, shouting obscenities, slurs, and other threats. She is literally screaming that some entrees left the kitchen without a dinner roll. When the chef apologizes and tries to calm her down and offers to go hand out the missing rolls, she says, "I'll shove those dinner rolls where the sun doesn't shine." The chef just shrugs her off and once again has to go out of the kitchen to dole out missing items directly to people. As soon as the chef left, the Karen coordinator comes back in and starts completely messing up all the plates again, grinding service to a halt as we desperately try to clean up her health violations. And then the mother of Bridezilla returns just to scream at us some more. The last plates are finally made up, leftovers are packed up where they need to go, and at this point, the chef sends everyone home so they don't have to deal with the Karen's posse anymore. And the Queen Karen told us to get out multiple times anyways. This chef, the brave man that he is, stays behind and helps bust the tables. He scraps the dishware and cleans the kitchen. Now, as a note, no cleaning of dishware was to be included because this entitled Karen didn't want to pay the staff hours to handle it, but the chef stays over and handles it all anyways. Because bless him, he wants to make up for the inconvenience of it all. Well, that unfortunately wasn't good enough for Bridezilla or the mother of Bridezilla herself at all. Almost immediately following the wedding, they started sending angry emails trying to demand huge refunds with the veiled threat of giving us bad reviews. Our office guy by this point has conducted their own investigation since just about every staff member filed a report of harassment from the client and their guests, as well as notation of all the health code violations that the coordinator Karen caused in the kitchen. But what a mistake it was to use facts on a Karen, as they immediately spun around making up all sorts of health violations, downplaying the tirade of verbal harassment, minimizing coordinator Karen's kitchen escapades, as well as their threats to ruin us with bad reviews. Well, rightly so, our office guy shuts them down, offers a partial refund as a professional courtesy, but only on the contingency that they sign a settlement agreement. Now, why would we want them to sign a settlement agreement, you might be asking? Well, it's because they've already threatened to give us bad reviews, as well as take things to court, not to mention their slander, libel, and defamation. And in my honest opinion, the company should have told them to pound sand, and that an apology would have been too good after Queen Karen called the kitchen staff all sorts of names. Well, apparently, signing the agreement just wasn't what the Karen clan wanted, or maybe they wouldn't be satisfied with anything less than a full refund. But eventually, the bad reviews started to come in, not to mention the social media slandering and the general angry Karen stuff. I mean, this was an absolute nightmare. Apparently, some of them even submitted bogus reports to the health inspector, and hilariously enough, none of those even lined up with their previous complaints, such as one for moldy food and the frozen meals that we sell at our storefront. As of initially writing this back in November of last year, Google finally stepped in and blasted their awful reviews into the shadow realm. All they could do was cry about it all over Facebook. Now, to end this story off, as it turned out, during the investigation of the Karen's clan, every single one of them was a bunch of anti-vax COVID deniers. Now, what does this have to do with any of this, you might be wondering? Well, shortly after I made this post, they ended up transmitting COVID to all of the staff that we had present there. And this basically left us shut down for the rest of November, with all of our staff sick, as well as getting their family sick. And this is all because they're too stupid and selfish to get a little shot in the arm. All in all, I think this was the worst group of people I've ever seen in over 2 decades of hospitality. Wow, that is an absolute nightmare. These Karens not only didn't want any servers, but they also didn't want to pay for people to wash the dishes. Like, seriously, are they stupid or something? I mean, not to mention some of the obvious clues that, yeah, they are pretty dumb, but like, seriously, they didn't even want someone washing the dishes? Honestly, with all things considered, I'm so sorry you went through this, but man, I can only imagine having to deal with this, because these Karens sounded absolutely obnoxious, and hopefully nothing like this ever happens to you or your business ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for reminding my parents that my stepsister ruined our family's future? Here's what happened. So I grew up in a big blended family where we all consider ourselves siblings, and I consider my stepmom my mother. Now, all of us kids are close except for one person, who we will call Lena, my stepsister. Lena Lena is not her real name. My parents think it's just because she didn't grow up with the rest of us, but that's not it. And sure, by the time she came to live with us, she was almost 18 years old. But it's not because of that. It's because she cost the rest of us our futures. You see, when she came to live with us, she had been independently homeschooled. She was said to be very smart, but testing revealed that she only had about a 9th grade education, all with no transferable credits. Neither our school or the public school were willing to place her above the 9th grade. Since she was only about a month away from turning 18, this would mean that she would be in high school until her 21st birthday, and would more likely than not have dropped out anyways. The other option was for her to get a GED. Now, they were devastated, especially because she had an offer from family friends to get her into and through college if she did a very specific program that she did have advanced education in. If she didn't graduate that year, they would question how bad it was and likely rescind the offer. The only other option was for her to get a GED, which would force the family friend to take back the offer, even if they still wanted to help her out, because she could never get accepted with a GED. My parents worried over this, until someone they knew who was the admin of another private school offered to help out. They offered to enroll her as a senior, and she could spend the year catching up, and this was provided that they saw it in their hearts to give a donation, of course. Well, after $100,000 later, she graduated from an accredited high school and moved on to college. My family, by the way, is just normal middle class, so paying that price meant that the rest of us had to take out massive student loans, and my youngest siblings even had to switch to public schooling. My older brother got some help before this, but there wasn't a dime left for the rest of us. My parents justify it by saying they had to do it because it was their job to give all their kids as close to an equal start to their lives as possible, and this was the only option to do that for her. My mom asked why we all have this strained relationship with Lena, and it finally came out that truthfully, we resent her for the huge financial load on us and the rest of the family that she caused. It has been 10 years and she's never even tried to apologize or make amends, and that is honestly grating. But now my father is telling us that my mom has fallen into a depressive episode, all because nobody loves Lena except for her, and that we were not a family despite everything that she's done. Well, in my eyes, we are a family, just not Lena. So am I a jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, so in my opinion, I do think you're kind of being a jerk here. First of all, it's been 10 years. If this happened like last week, I would understand where you're coming from. But seriously, you're acting like she ruined your lives. First of all, this is not Lena's fault. And if anything, this falls on your parents for not maintaining her homeschooling. And sure, it was self-directed or whatever you want to call it, but seriously, that is not easy to do on your own. So it kind of makes sense that your stepsister would be behind just a little bit. Kids don't choose to homeschool themselves. I mean, your parents had to step in and make that decision at some point. And so now, because your parents dropped the ball, Lena was stuck in an awful situation. Like, she didn't do anything wrong. Sure, her parents spent a lot of money to get her education, but that is literally them trying to fix a situation that they caused. So honestly, in my opinion, if after 10 years you're still trying to hold this over Lena's head, then I really think you are the jerk in this situation, and you really need to understand exactly where this problem really started. Am I the jerk for refusing to leave my son's wedding simply because my daughter was having really bad social anxiety? Because at this point, my daughter is acting incredibly immature, and right now I am unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I first want to say that this has been a built-up issue, as my son got married this weekend, and this issue isn't dying, so I'm gonna go here to figure it out. My daughter has very bad anxiety. She is 19 years old, and I'm gonna call her Shelly for the sake of the story. Shelly is not her real name. Now, she used to go to therapy when she was a minor, but she stopped as soon as she turned 18 years old. And ever since then, her anxiety has been out of control. And due to this, she won't drive anymore. Now, she has a license, but she refuses to drive. We live in the United States, and driving is basically needed, or it's a big inconvenience for the people around her. Also, she is an adult, so it's not like we can force her to drive. Now, this is where the issue comes into play. My son was getting married, and she was uncomfortable with so many people around her at this wedding. So she asked me to take her home. I told her no, and that if she's having difficulties, she can wait in the car. But she told me that it's freezing outside and that she just needs to leave. So I told her no again, and I told her to turn on the heat in the car, and that she can wait there if she really needs to be away from people. Well, she didn't like this answer, and told me that she will have a panic attack if she stays, and that she needs to go home. Well, I told her that she needs to take an Uber then because I am not leaving. And when I said this, she simply didn't like that, turning this into a full argument. And when Shelly told me that I need to take her home again, I had simply had enough. I told Shelly she was being selfish and that despite her many opinions, I will not deprive her brother of having his parents being at his wedding. I said that if I took her home, I would miss his wedding since it was an hour drive from here. Well, Shelly called me a jerk and left to go stay in the car for a little bit. She was back about an hour later for the rest of the wedding, and she has been angry with me ever since, with her younger brother copying her attitude. So honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I seriously can't believe that your daughter's acting like that, and that she would seriously want to pull you away from this wedding just so she can go all the way home an hour away. Like, does she not care about the fact that her brother's getting married? Like, seriously, that's so selfish, it's not even funny. And here's the thing, if she knows she has panic issues and she has a lot of like social anxiety or something like that, then it is her responsibility to manage those symptoms and make sure she's in a good place. Because it is absolutely unreasonable for everyone else around her to literally have to change everything about their life just to accommodate her. And I'm not saying that in a general sense. If there are minor things that a loved one or a sibling really would need to better accommodate their living situation or whatever might be going on, then I am more than willing to like step up and make those changes. But for her to seriously look at you and be like, no, I want to leave the wedding right now and you need to drive me home right away. Like, that is completely unacceptable and unreasonable given the circumstances. And so you telling her to get an Uber or to sit in the car honestly is exactly what I would have done. Because if you walked out on that day when your son was about to get married, that honestly would have been completely tragic. And it all would have been Shelly's fault because she has not done anything to manage her anxiety symptoms. So no, you are not the jerk. Her anxiety is for her to deal with. And if she cannot understand that simple fact, then that is something that she is just gonna have to live with. Am I the jerk for refusing to name my daughter after my bully from high school? Because right now, my husband is not listening to any of my concerns. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was in high school, I was constantly being bullied by Sophia. She made fun of my appearance, my personality, my hobbies, and my grades. She also spread rumors about me and often told me that she wished I wasn't alive. And she was pretty specific about saying that to me. And even in elementary school, she was just this stuck-up brat who just endlessly spoke about how rich she was. So, in general, I do not have a positive connotation for the name Sophia, but wouldn't just dislike someone because they share the name. Well, my husband and I were discussing names for our child, and we don't know if it's going to be a male or a female, but we started making a list of 10 male and 10 female names that we would consider. And one of the names that my husband was very insistent on was Sophia. And this is the name of his dead grandmother who basically raised him since his parents were always busy with work. Now, all at once, I told him that I would not even consider it because of the bully who tormented me who was also named Sophia. Well, he got angry since he really wanted to use the name of the person who meant so much to him. But I held my ground and I simply refused. He told me that we should at least put it in the possible names category, but I said absolutely not since I did not even want to consider it. Well, he got really angry that I wasn't trying to take his opinion into account. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this is really funny to me because like, how can your husband not see that this is a problem? For starters, no, of course you're not the jerk. Like, this is insane that your husband can't see where you're coming from. So obviously, this brings up a lot of bad memories about a school bully who made your life a living nightmare. And obviously, that can affect someone well into adulthood. And you know what? I know exactly where you're coming from as well. The name of my bully when I was in school is like a name I don't like at all. It has a horrible negative connotation and it really does bring up bad memories. So the last thing I would ever want to do is name my future child by that bully's name. Like, that's just a recipe for disaster, and that literally will just make me resent that child for the rest of their life. And if someone really wants to think like, oh yeah, you just gotta get over it, then that person is being completely unreasonable and clearly they didn't have any kind of struggles as a kid. Because in the case of the original poster, this bully literally said to the original poster that they wish they were no longer alive. Like, I don't know about you, but that really sounds like an awful person, and from the sounds of it, they made their entire high school career an absolute nightmare. So the fact that your husband is trying to push this name on you is evidence right there that he's not even thinking about your experience incompetence, and he honestly is being very short-sighted. Also, why on earth would he still want to pursue a name that the both of you don't agree on? That seems incredibly counterintuitive, and it honestly just doesn't make sense why he would want to put it on the list. If either one of you said no to a name for your future child, then that, in my opinion, should be like the end of the conversation. That should be the last thing you ever say about it, and you just say, okay, that name's not gonna work. And then you move on to other names that do work. Like, how is this hard for your husband to understand? So overall, no, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your husband is being unreasonable, and the fact that he would get upset over this honestly is insane to me, because that name has a lot of weight to it. And I seriously think that if you named your future child by that name, then that would seriously be a disaster waiting to happen. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.